Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa, which is 1/6 the size of Australia with nearly 3 times its population, is compelled to introduce ore beneficiation strategies for mineral value chains and resource-based industrialization. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us just why digging dirt is not an option for South Africa. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, what are some of the opportunities for the beneficiation of iron ore?
Yes, this whole issue of not beneficiating was raised by Dr. Paul Jordan in Cape Town. He's a person who's really been around the block and also is an advisor for so many different governments. So what he says got people to listen, I must say. He took over the whole show virtually in Cape Town. And the big point he made was, look, South Africa's got to do more with its metals and minerals. It can't do what Australia or Canada does. They've got vast territories with small populations. We've got small territories with big populations who are needing jobs. So you've got to have methodologies that you use to make sure you leverage things for the people off your metals and minerals, and you have a supply side methodology. If you're the only one with the minerals, of course, you can exercise certain leverage on getting people to make things with that metal and mineral, think platinum. And then on the demand side, you've got other strategies, starting with how many jobs you want to create. So if people take over those assets, they get the assets on the basis of how much value they're going to add inside the country because you want those jobs. So it's quite a complicated setup, but he's saying, look, South Africa's got to have it, and so they must just do it. He does advise a lot of governments, so he's speaking to a lot of people. I think some of his points are getting across. I mean, I spoke to a few foreign investors there, and I said, gee, isn't this complicated for you? They said, no, it's happening all over Africa. So that is the mantra, that do something more with this for the people, so that there's not just trickle down, that there's more direct benefit flowing through.
Now, Paul Jordan suggested that not everyone should be forced to beneficiate. What's that story?
You see, the whole story is some of these deposits are rich and some of them are poor. But you don't want to disincentivize actually getting something out of those resources. So you actually have a big stick of resource rent tax for the very well-to-do deposits, that can really cope with it. He was talking about some of the people making 500% returns, and so he's also indicating that people should not just get assets on the first come, first served basis. He's saying this is colonial, this was to try and encourage people to come to the new territories, and then they could peg out their claims, etc., and pay next to nothing for them. And to still do it now is ridiculous, because we actually know what's in the ground. And many of these dollars just come in and they hoodwink the government into thinking, well, they've discovered something. In the meantime, it's a known deposit. So he's saying when they really discover something, then use the old method of first come, first served. But when you know the value of the deposit, rather find out what the market feels by getting companies to bid for that deposit. But the bid will be different. You must then say how you're going to add value domestically. And on the basis of who is going to add the most value domestically, they take the deposit. And it's offset against your this resource rents tax. That's a very complicated setup. I said to him, look, this is very complex. My mind's spinning. He's saying, look, what else do we do here? We've got not the same square kilometrage of property as the likes of Australia, which can go on digging dirt forever, 300 years, he said. There's vast countries, only 20 million people. We've got 6 of their size and nearly 3 times the people. And the people aren't as developed as many of those in Australia, so they're looking for work. Leverage is off this in the same way as the Germans did, when they exploited their metals and minerals. And also get a knowledge economy out of it, and side stream beneficiation and all the other linkages. Make sure you get all the other linkages, and ultimately you're going to do much better for your country.
Now, Jordan also says that the future iron ore resources are in the Bushveld complex,
Yes.
when most of them seem to be mined in the Kalahari Basin.
Yeah, that's right. You know, he's big on us being involved with steel, and also he says most jobs, and this is proven, come from manufacturers. So try and get some manufacture going. You'd like to get that manufacture going in the steel sector, and you know, one thinks, well, South Africa hasn't got that much iron ore, but he's saying, you know, there's 27 billion tons of it in the Bushveld, only 3 billion tons where we're mining at the moment. You know, all the mining takes place in the Kalahari Basin. We know that the Kumba iron ore is there. We know that Asmang is there, and a lot of the other companies. There are a few who are outside of that in the Bushveld areas, but of course, he's got to acknowledge that more technology is needed to turn the Bushveld ore to account. So that's why he's saying we should resuscitate the old technology development that we used to have under ISCOR, which was a state-owned enterprise. And he said just rehabilitate some of that technology. I mean, a lot of the work has been done so that you can try and turn this bigger endowment in the Bushveld, which we normally associate with platinum, turn the iron ore side of that to positive account. And then, as your first question related to all the opportunities, you know, he put big screens up saying these are the opportunities, dividing them into two, some on the coast with a sort of a exchange type of deal where you swap ore for steel. Again, complicated stuff. And then inland where, you know, the IDC has been buying up assets. You know, we saw them get involved in Score Metals, which was traditionally a company that used scrap, metal scrap, and turned that into long products, as they call them, you know, structural steel products. And then other steel companies produce flat products that are used for car making, etc. He's outlining all the potential opportunities there in the hopes that, you know, we can get this manufacturing going, but using some of the advantage that we have in the Bushveld with this iron ore. And also, of course, we must use that mountain of resource that is at Palabora. And the IDC were quite bullish on that. They said that this month there's going to be an announcement. You know, we've been waiting for 2-3 decades. There's been magnetite out in Palabora, and metallurgist after metallurgist has been going out of there to see how they could actually make it pay. And it was a guy who's never done metallurgy in his life that's cracked the code, which often happens. And he's made sure that you know, you can create a scrap substitute, not using coking coal, because we're short of coking coal, and that means that you can have the iron ore, but you know, the coke is going to be so expensive. You know, what do you do when you have to turn it to steel, etc.? So they're saying, well, it's going to be thermal coal you use, very low energy. So there was a lot of bullishness around this potential coming through, so that it's not really linked to the iron ore price, because people are saying, you know, if you've got a steel plant and you've got to work to the ups and downs, or particularly the ups of the iron ore price, it can just ruin your business. But this could come in at a constant price because it's coming from an inland source, and it's not linked, it's not iron ore, it's a sort of a steel scrap substitute. It's a little bit beyond me, but it seems there is optimism around this. They say we should hear more this month, and we do know there's been change of ownership at Palabora. There are other people on site working on this new technology. So it'll be good for someone to put all the pieces together. Dr. Paul Jordan was flashing them onto a screen, but very quickly, and then taking them off. He did give me a copy of the presentation, so we can go further with that. But he's very keen on creating value chains, mineral value chains. And he's saying he's working on behalf of the Department of Trade of Industry in South Africa, Department of Science and Technology, the Department of Mineral Resources, and he says finance is involved because when it comes to the IDC giving loans, they must give loans to those who are doing the value addition trick. And he gave this definition for what this beneficiation really is, because there's so many different definitions for beneficiation, but this is very much how much of the local value is in there, and subtracting that from the inputs the imported inputs and arriving at some sort of conclusion as to how much value you've added at home, and that value must translate into people benefiting across the board.
And I suppose the biggest benefit for that would be employment.
Employment is the thing. On the supply side, methodology, as he said, he's looking for employment, but I'm sure, on the demand side, looking for employment, but I'm sure on the supply side it'll be exactly the same.
Well, it sounds very bullish and exciting.
And complicated.
Very. Thank you, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.